Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 deleted movie scenes that cross the line.
Because you're trying to throw away years of being together. You're just trying to erase it like it doesn't exist. You're trying to destroy the fact that we're a family.
For this list, we're looking at disturbing deleted scenes that would have significantly altered the movie's characters or tone. The scenes in question don't need to have been filmed, as long as they were once conceived or planned. Do you think these scenes should have been included? Let us know in the comments below. Number 20. The Spider Pit, King Kong. The original King Kong from 1933 features a scene in which the giant ape knocks men off a log and into a deep ravine. This was actually a shortened and modified version of a much longer and much nastier sequence. As originally conceived, the men survived the drop from the log and battled various creatures at the bottom of the ravine. But this scene was deemed much too graphic and was altered before the movie's release. Much to the disappointment of film and history scholars, the cut footage has since been lost. However, director Peter Jackson later made his own version of the sequence. It is just as unsettling and creepy-crawly as you would expect. Number 19. Elsa interrogates two guards. Frozen.
What a coincidence. Never underestimate the power of snow and ice.
In a parallel universe, Elsa never becomes the pop culture sensation that she is in ours. That's because in the original version of the film, Elsa was actually the villain. She kidnapped Anna and took her to the ice castle. When two guards come looking for the princess, they are painfully tormented by Elsa before presumably being killed by her army of snowmen. This sequence was actually taken to the storyboard phase before the script underwent some major rewrites. In fact, it was the song Let It Go that altered the direction of the story. The writers loved the lyrics and decided to make Elsa a more sympathetic and three-dimensional character. While Elsa does confront guards in the final film, the scene isn't nearly as dark.
We got her.
No, please.
Number 18. The Bar Exchange, Deadpool.
Wait, Vanessa loves you. She doesn't care what you low. Oh,
Do you like what you see?
no.
One of the funniest scenes in Deadpool comes about when Wade Wilson shows his best friend Weasel his newly scarred face. Weasel then goes to town on Wade and makes numerous crude remarks about his appearance. Funnily enough, of all the lines that Deadpool was willing to cross, offensive observations was not one of them. During the film's premiere in Los Angeles, director Tim Miller revealed that this bar sequence was originally much meaner, but it was considered too vulgar and mean-spirited. According to Miller, it left, quote, so many people offended. We don't know what the remarks could have been, but if they were too much for this grotesque and crude superhero spoof, then we understand why they never saw the light of day.
Well, you gotta do something to remedy this, because as of now, you only have one course of action.
Damn straight. Find
Star in
Francis.
horror films.
Number 17. Too Much Fighting, Mrs. Doubtfire.
You can't go now.
When you have to.
We're right in the middle of Charlotte's Web. Who's gonna finish it?
While undoubtedly hilarious, Mrs. Doubtfire has many difficult themes surrounding divorce, loneliness, and desperation. If you think the movie's serious scenes were harsh enough, wait until you hear about the scenes they deleted. The original cut was far more dramatic. It featured a lot of divorce talk and ferocious arguing between Daniel and Miranda. In one scene, the two fought during Lydia's spelling bee and interrupted her performance. In another, the parents loudly argued in their bedroom after the climactic reveal while their crying children listened in. The scenes were absolutely heartbreaking. While they would fit perfectly in a fully serious film, they seemed too out of place in this dramedy.
I'm their father. They love me.
I'm their mother. They love me. I hate you both.
Number 16. Dale and Julia, Horrible Bosses 2. While the original Horrible Bosses was well received, some have criticized it for making light of sexual harassment against men. Charlie Day's Dale Arbus is constantly mistreated by his female boss. But rather than showing sympathy, his friends make fun of him for complaining.
You never get any sympathy out of us for this.
She's going crazy. It's like a totally hostile work environment now, man.
This subplot is taken to an extreme in the sequel. During the film, Julia gets intimate with an unconscious Dale while he's in a coma. In the theatrical version of the film, this is implied rather than explicitly shown. But one deleted scene depicts the act in graphic detail. Fortunately, this did not make it into the movie. Seeing this criminal act played for laughs would have been way too much.
It's okay. Julie explained everything.
No, don't talk to her. She's
No,
crazy.
Number 15. Khan loses a son. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
Full impulse power.
No, sir. You have Genesis. You can have whatever you... Full power!
While violence has always been at the heart of Star Trek, the franchise has rarely gone overboard with it. But that all changed with the iconic Wrath of Khan. In the original cut of the film, the titular villain had a son who was killed once the Genesis device was activated. The only proof of this scene existing is a photo from the magazine Star Blazer. The reason for the character's elimination remains unknown. However, it's likely that test audiences found the death of a young person to be far too dark. Additionally, they may have found that incorporating this tragedy into Khan's backstory might have made the villain too sympathetic.
From hell's heart, I stab at thee. For hate's sake, I spit my last breath at thee.
Number 14. Peggy's death. The Mask.
Ripley Auto Finishing, you're a customer of theirs, aren't you?
Me? No. I don't even have a car.
In this iconic comedy from 1994, Amy Yazbek plays a reporter named Peggy Brandt. The last time she appears, she betrays main character Stanley and serves him up to villain Dorian Tyrell. If you thought this was a rather anticlimactic end to her character arc, that's because the true conclusion was left on the cutting room floor. After Dorian puts on the mask, he kills Peggy by throwing her into the printing press. A newspaper then emerges with a picture of Peggy's flattened face and the headline, "Reporter Killed in Freak Accident." Even worse, Peggy's blood is used for the ink. Suffice it to say, this sequence was far too violent and would have likely pushed the film into R-rated territory.
What do we do with Ipkiss?
The police are looking for the mask, so we'll give them the mask.
Number 13. The original ending. Split.
This is like that crazy guy in the wheelchair that they put away 15 years ago. And they gave him a funny name, too. What was it?
Mr. Glass.
M. Night Shyamalan won back fans with Split, a thriller with a rather ambiguous ending. The movie begins when the main villain captures 3 young women. After a long game of cat and mouse, the sinister beast spares main character Casey's life and goes on the run. His whereabouts are then left unknown. While the original ending was also rather open-ended, it added an incredibly dark tone. Instead of having the beast go on the run, he stops and looks at a school. The implication that he would be selecting more victims was incredibly disturbing. As Shyamalan himself explained on the home video release, this scene was, quote, just too dark.
I had this ending in for a while and kind of moved it around in a few different places, but it was just too dark.
Number 12. Shan Yu and Hayabusa. Mulan.
Now all of China knows you're here.
Perfect.
By Disney standards, Mulan is already a pretty grim film. It's centered around war and features many scenes of human-on-human violence. But it was originally a lot darker. In one cutscene, we see Shan Yu and his men after they burned a village down. Suddenly, one of the soldiers saves a canary. Shan Yu sees this act through his falcon's eyes and makes an example out of the man. Not only does he send the falcon to kill the canary, but he murders the man in cold blood while the other henchmen cheer him on. According to director Tony Bancroft, the scene was cut for pacing reasons, as it took the focus away from Mulan. But we assume the cruel content certainly did not help.
How many men does it take to deliver a message?
1.
Number 11. Murphy's Death. RoboCop.
Well, what have we here? You a good cop? Hot shot?
Paul Verhoeven's masterpiece has long been regarded for its comically over-the-top violence. While the graphic scenes were designed to be amusingly exaggerated, the MPAA took major issue with it and repeatedly gave the film an X rating. According to Verhoeven, the movie went through 8 different versions before it was finally given the R. Murphy's death scene was one of the biggest offenders. It was originally criticized for being far too violent and a little bit too long. However, the filmmakers were able to get away with it thanks to some clever editing, alternate camera angles, and the cutting of more graphic shots. These changes were eventually reversed for the unrated director's cut, in which Murphy's demise is both longer and nastier.
Cops don't like me, so I don't like cops.
Number 10. Steve's very graphic end. Scream.
His name wouldn't be Steve, would it?
How do you know his name?
Turn on the patio lights.
Most people find the opening scene of Scream to be graphic enough without this deleted scene. Overall, Wes Craven had an immense amount of difficulty in securing an R rating for Scream. He had sent up to 8 different versions to the MPAA, all of which came back with an NC-17 rating due to the movie's intense violence. One of the problematic scenes was Steve's death. In the original cut, Steve loses his internal organs in a very graphic way. The MPAA stated the audience could not see those vital parts move on screen after they were removed from his body. As a result, Wes removed the gruesome details and focused solely on Steve's dying face. The shot was later reinstated for various home video releases.
But poor Steve, I'm afraid he's out.
Number 9. Katie's Fatal Cut. Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity certainly does not have a happy ending, but it could have been much darker. Of course, your opinion as to whether or not cutting this scene was a good call likely depends on how dark you like your endings. In the theatrical version, a bloody and demonic-looking Katie walks into the room and lunges at the camera. Pretty tame. However, an alternate ending was shot by Paramount that sees Katie smiling at the camera before turning the knife on herself and dropping out of frame. They eventually decided against this ending, probably because it left no room for sequels, but it can still be found on the DVD. Number 8. Cocoons Alien. Alien is known for being one of the scariest sci-fi horrors of all time, but if you think it couldn't get any scarier, think again. There was going to be a sequence that saw Ripley coming across alien cocoons imprisoning Dallas and Brett. She then has a quick conversation with the barely conscious Dallas before burning him alive within the cocoon.
Kill me. What did it do?
The image of Dallas trapped in the cocoon is incredibly haunting and disgusting, and the act of Ripley setting them on fire is grotesque. The scene was cut for pacing reasons, although a shortened version of it appears in the director's cut for the morbidly curious among you. Number 7. The theater scene. Gangster Squad.
The cops. Chief Parker put him up to it.
There was a scene in the original cut of Gangster Squad wherein various characters shoot submachine guns at a crowd in Grauman's Chinese theater. However, just 2 months after the trailer dropped, James Holmes committed a violent act in a similar setting in Colorado that resulted in numerous deaths. In the wake of the tragedy, the trailer for Gangster Squad was pulled, and the scene was completely removed from the film. The movie's release date was later bumped back to rework the film. Warner Brothers certainly deserves credit for pulling such a graphic scene out of respect for the victims and their families. Number 6. The Taming Party. Zootopia.
Can we please just find a way out?
Oh, I did. For me.
Zootopia is arguably one of Disney's heaviest and most mature movies, as it tackles some incredibly difficult subject matter like corruption, racism, and xenophobia. However, it could have been a whole lot darker. One planned but abandoned concept saw Judy and Nick sneaking through something called a taming party.
Today, my little Morris is no longer a cub. Today, he becomes
a big bear.
That is right.
Said taming party involved a young bear being gifted a shock collar, something that all predators must wear to keep their predatory instincts at bay. It's a fascinating scene that shows how much a film can change from conception to final product. And it's a brutally sad look into how dark the movie could have been.
Thank you, Baba.
Number 5. Alex's death. Jaws.
Alex?
One of the scariest and most well-known scenes of Jaws is young Alex's death. We don't see much, but it's still an incredibly disturbing scene, and it could have been much worse. The scene was originally shot with Jaws emerging from the water and biting into him. Old pictures can even be found online of the mechanical shark and the dummy that was created to stand in for the young actor. However, the scene was altered to be far less graphic, which is probably for the best. Jaws made a huge impact without having to explicitly show Alex being chomped by a shark. Number 4. Bruce attempts to take his own life. The Incredible Hulk. A scene was shot for The Incredible Hulk that saw Bruce traveling to the Arctic Circle in an attempt to take his own life. The scene sees human Bruce kneeling in the snow and taking out a gun. After he cocks it, the man turns into the Hulk and crushes the gun in his hand. The harrowing scene was ultimately considered too dark to include in the finished film. However, the deleted sequence does get an explicit reference in The Avengers. During a heated scene, Bruce tells several heroes about this dark incident. Mark Ruffalo's emotional and impactful delivery served as evidence that the audience didn't need to fully see the grim event play out.
The cell was just in
case you needed to kill me, but you can't. I know, I tried.
Number 3. The famous sacrifice scene. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Temple of Doom is often seen as the inferior Indiana Jones movie, at least of the original trilogy, mostly due to its dark violence. And while the infamous heart-ripping scene helped lead to the creation of the PG-13 rating, the original idea could have pushed the movie into R territory. Actor Nizwa Karanj revealed that the original scene saw his character being lowered into a pit of lava, similar to how he is in the theatrical version. However, the plan was to have his body slowly disintegrate upon contact with the lava until only his face remained, floating on the surface. Unsurprisingly, this idea was later scrapped for being too disturbing. Number 2. The eyeball scene. From Beyond.
We're going to go in the hall now, Crawford.
Censors must have a thing with eyeballs, as an eyeball scene was also cut from Divergent for being too violent. One particularly nasty scene in From Beyond sees Dr. Tillinghast attacking a doctor. He then proceeds to remove one of her eyes in a way we can't describe here, while also snacking on her brains. Even saying that makes us queasy. Director Stuart Gordon has stated that he was fiercely reprimanded by the MPAA and was forced to edit the scene, robbing it of its intended intensity. The unrated cut has subsequently been released in all its gory detail. Horror buffs may love it, but the average viewer is likely to prefer the MPAA-approved version. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Evan prevents his birth. The butterfly effect.
Anyone finds this, it means that my plan didn't work and I'm already dead.
Audiences definitely have their limits when it comes to violence against young people. 2017's It cut a particularly disturbing scene involving a defenseless person. And considering that the main creature preys on young people, that is saying something. But the butterfly effect's cutscene directly affects the ending. During the butterfly effect, Evan learns he can travel back through time. He burns the journals that enable him to do so in the end of the American theatrical cut. But in other versions of the film, Evan travels back to when he was in the womb. He then personally ensures he doesn't survive to be born. While this ending made sense for the story, the studio seemed to find it too intense for US audiences.
Before you were born, I was pregnant 3 times, but they were all stillbirths.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.